Hello, hello. Welcome back to Mrs. Gregorio's virtual math lessons. Today we've got a bit of a challenging lesson from our last videos. We're going to practice converting decimal numbers between forms when we group, when we have to bundle and move things over mentally, especially when we get some challenging questions with unit form. So let's take a look. Last time in our videos, we talked about many forms that we can write numbers in. Base 10 numeral or standard form, number name or word form, unit form, and expanded form. And the last time we left, we were really investigating unit form, and like we have here, 34 and 652 thousandths. We see in unit form we have the digits and also the word for the unit that represents the value of each digit. But is there other ways that we could say this number in unit form? So let's practice switching it around and showing off our place value understanding by writing this in a different way. So we have 3 tenths, 4 ones, 6 tenths, 5 hundredths, and 2 thousandths. That's kind of what this looks like when we are building it out and showing a model representation with our blocks. And we know right now in standard form or base 10 numeral, we would write that as 34 and 652 thousandths. But let's look at the tens. Right now we have 3 tens, but what if I did not want to use tens in my unit form, or I could not use tens, I could only say ones? Then I would have to look at, we also have 4 ones here, but hiding inside those 3 tens, are there also some ones hiding in there? There are. We know each 10 actually has 10 ones. So with our 3 tens, we have actually 30 ones hiding in there. And then with our 4 ones that we have, that means altogether, if we were just going to say ones as our unit and not talk about tens, we could say we have 34 ones. All right, let's look now at our smaller place values. We have 6 tenths, 5 hundredths, and 2 thousandths. But maybe in our unit form, instead of splitting all those up between tenths, hundredths, and thousandths, what if we only wanted to talk about how many thousandths we had? Well, we know when we look at the thousandths place, we start with 2 thousandths, right? But in our 5 hundredths, are there thousandths hiding in each one of those hundredths? There are. We know there's actually 10 thousandths in each one of those hundredths. So we did only have 2 thousandths, but hiding inside our 5 hundredths are actually 50 thousandths in there. Then let's look at our 10 rods. We have 6 tenths. Now, this takes a little bit of thinking, but inside each one of those tenths, how many thousandths do you think are hiding in there? Well, we know in our beautiful base 10 place value system that we multiply by 10 each time. So there's actually 100 little tiny thousandths hiding in each one of those tenths rods. So if we think of all of that together, we did have 2 thousandths, but there were 50 thousandths when we had those 5 hundredths. And then there were actually 600 pieces of thousandths when we look at that 6 tenths. So if we wanted to, instead of splitting all those up, we could just look at that 652 and know we actually have 652 thousandths. All right, now we're going to challenge again. So let's think about this way. This time, we want to only use tenths and thousandths in our unit form when talking about decimals. So we're not going to use the word hundredths. But we have those 5 hundredths. They can't just disappear. So how are we going to represent that value in a different way? Well, we can look at how many tenths we have, and we have 6 tenths, right? But then if we are looking now at only using our thousandths, if we can't say hundredths, we can't just forget about those hundredths. We know we have 2 over there in the thousandths, but let's look at our 5 Oh, there's our 2. So we already know we had 2 thousandths. But now let's look at our 5 hundredths. We just talked about hiding inside of those little hundredths. Are there thousands hiding in there? There sure are. We know we need 10 thousandths to make 1 hundredth. So yes, there are 5 hundredths, but there are also 50 thousandths represented in that amount. So instead of just saying that we have 2 thousandths, we could say that we have 52 thousandths. So another way in unit form of saying that number is we could say we have 34 ones, 6 tenths, and 52 thousandths. All right, let's try another way. This time, I don't want to use tenths, or maybe I can't use tenths. So I want to talk about this value we have in the decimal in only hundredths and thousandths. So we can look at first that we have 5 hundredths. So we know we already have 5 hundredths, but we can't forget about those 6 tenths that we have. But like we've practiced before, are there some hundredths hiding in those tenths? There sure are. You can almost even see them stacked up, that there are 10 hundredths in each tenth. And that means we don't, yes, we have 6 tenths, but we also have 60 hundredths represented in that value. Plus, we already had the 5 hundredths in our hundredths place. So that means we actually have 65 hundredths if we didn't want to talk about tenths. And then we can think about our thousandths, and how many thousandths do we have? We have 2. So another way we can say that is 34 ones and 65 hundredths and 2 thousandths. All right, now I want to try a challenge with you. I have 25 hundredths, 10 thousandths, and 12 tenths and 5 ones. What number am I? This one's going to be a little bit backwards to what we just did. So this time you're taking the unit form that seems a little strange, and you are going to think about what number it should be. So if we were to build this number, they say we have 25 hundredths. I'm already thinking that's a little strange. 10 thousandths, that would look like that. 12 tenths, and 5 ones. Now, looking at this, I always make sure I put my decimal next to the ones to show that I have 5 whole ones, and then the other amount we have is in decimal form. They're all smaller than 1. But when I'm looking at that, do you see some things that look a little strange? We know in our beautiful place value system that you really can only have 10 of a unit before it regroups, right? So we can't really keep 12 and 25 and 10 in here. That just would not make sense. So let's think about how we would regroup that. Let's look at the thousandths first. When those 10 thousandths make a group of 10, what do they want to do? Well, they want to regroup and become a hundredth. So we did have 10 thousandths, but we're going to regroup that, and they wanted to go become another hundredth. So instead of having 25 hundredths, now we have 26. Well, at least our thousandths place seems better. But let's look at these hundredths. Now we have 26 hundredths, all just in the one space on our place value chart. Does that seem right? No, we know that we can bundle groups of 10 and that they want to be able to make groups of 10 and go over and be a tenth and get even bigger. So we could make 2. Let's see, how many do you see? I see 2 groups of 10 that we could pull out of there. So it was 26. There'd be 6 left over, but out of that 26, we can make 2 groups of 10. We can regroup them, and we can move them over into the tenths place. So we did have 12 tenths. Now we're going to have 14 tenths. And now there's only 6 hundredths left after our regrouping. That looks much better. But now I'm looking at our tenths rods, and they look like there is way too many. We know there's more than 10, and that's more that can be there. Is there at least one group of 10 we can make? There sure is. We're going to take that group of 10 tenths, and they're going to want to bundle up and become a 1. And you'll see that that's probably going to leave us with about 4 tenths left. But let's do that. We're going to regroup those, and those are going to become another 1. There's still going to be 4 tenths left over. And now, instead of only having 5 ones, we have 6. So we can see that even though that was a very strange unit form that they gave us, 25 hundredths, 10 thousandths, 12 tenths, and 5 ones, when we did our regrouping and our understanding of the numbers and values, that number in standard form or base 10 numeral is 6 and 46 hundredths, or 6 ones, 4 tenths, and 6 hundredths. Okay, and we can write that out like that in unit form. Looks very different, but still represents the same amount, the same value in total that we had. All right, now I want you to try this one on your own. You can pause this video. See if you can figure out what this number in base 10 numeral standard form would be. If I had 19 hundredths and 5 ones, how much do I have? Pause the video and then push play when you're ready to check your answer. All right, let's see if we agree. I got 15 ones and 19 hundredths. Hiding in that 19 hundredths, you can see that we actually have 1 tenth and 9 hundredths. Okay, I think you're ready now that you can see that we could write that in many different ways, but one of the ways that we could write it in uniform that's different is go ahead and separate out by each digit's value. To have the 110, 5 ones, 1 tenth, and 9 hundredths. All right, let's go and try some games and some more challenges. Thank you so much for watching today, and keep on practicing, and you can do it.